This episode is sponsored by FindItClassifieds.com, free internet classifieds. Since posting some of my HTML tutorials online, I've had quite a few people ask me about how to put the website online once you've built it. So in order to do that, first we need to understand a little bit about how the internet works at its most basic level. And the first thing we need to understand is that the internet operates on what is known as the client-server model. Basically, clients are computers just like the one you're on right now, watching this tutorial. Your computer requested the movie file from my server, or in this case Google's YouTube server, and it's sent back to your computer. So to make this really simple, there are clients requesting information and servers that respond to those requests for files and serve them back to the clients that requested them. Most of the time, your web design is going to be done on the client. And once you're ready to put it online, you'll need to upload it to a web server to make your web page available to the rest of the world. And the rest of this tutorial is going to discuss that. So we've discussed the client-server model, and the next step for us to get our website online is to find a web host. A web host can be a friend with a web server if you happen to have a buddy with their own web server, but usually we're talking about finding a company that provides web hosting, which is basically renting you space on one of their servers. There are an amazing amount of hosting providers out there, and the hosting options are just as numerous. So for the purposes of this tutorial, I'll try to explain some of the most common hosting options you'll see from some of the major hosting providers and the pros and cons of each of those later in this tutorial. So for now, we'll just keep to the basics. And if you want to get more information about different hosting providers and types of options they have, go to my website, rickcable.com, at the end of this video and look up this tutorial, and I'll have some show notes in there for you with some options. Once you've picked out your web hosting provider and a web hosting plan, at the end of that process you will have a web server and an internet protocol or IP address that you can use to find your website with a web browser. A good example would be one of my sites, webscom.com, which lives at 208.112.91.253. You can type the address into your web browser using just the IP, and the website comes up normally. Just in case you're getting a little apprehensive at this point, it really isn't that bad. Even though each hosting provider and the various hosting plans they offer will vary, any good web hosting provider will make sure you have all the documentation and help you need to get up and running. Now, nobody's going to remember how to find your website if you tell them you're at http://208.112.91.253. We use domain names to identify our websites, and hopefully it's easier to remember than the IP address. So how does the web browser know that IP address 208.112.91.253 belongs to webscom.com? This all happens on the server side using something called DNS, which stands for Domain Name System. DNS servers maintain lists of domain names and IP addresses, providing routing instructions so the client and the server can communicate. And you'll see a little diagram next to the text here that basically shows you how it works. It's basically the user computer talking to a DNS server. The DNS server first has a local table that it checks to see if it knows where webscom.com lives. And if not, there's another set of servers that sit outside that it can reference, it can ask, and it says, hey, I don't know where this is at, do you know? And sometimes that happens, and then the server will push back down, hey, I know where it lives, and then your request is routed. But this all takes milliseconds, and you don't even notice that this is happening. Every time you type in an address on the web and your web browser asks for a website, this happens every time. For beginners, hosting plans typically fall into two major categories. One being the online template or web design interface that requires you to build the site online and via a template or advanced design tool. These plans usually don't allow you to have direct access to the web server and won't allow you to tweak the code beyond what the interface allows. This works for many people, and some of the new online design tools are capable of producing professional looking web pages without a lot of knowledge of HTML or CSS. Second is the advanced hosting that includes FTP or file transfer protocol access to your web server, which offers you greater control over the entire site. If you need advanced features like using server-side code like ASP or PHP, or need to set up a database-driven website, you'll definitely need a hosting plan to match it. So if you're like me and you hand code or design advanced and complex sites all by yourself, this is the option for you. Next, you will need to find an available domain name and then register it with an authorized domain name registrar. In some cases, the hosting company might be an authorized registrar, but much of the time the hosting company will have a deal with the registrar and then recommend that one to you, most likely getting a commission on the back end. Your other choice is to do it yourself and cut out the middleman, and that's okay too, as each of these methods has its own pros and cons. Now, prices will vary widely from company to company, and some hosting companies will even bundle in the cost of the domain name registration into your monthly hosting bill, but the average is about $20 to $35 per year per domain name. Some of the cheaper registrars out there do all the setup for you but don't give you access to change any of the registration information later. In many cases, I find you get what you pay for, in that some may charge a little more but provide you more access to make changes to the registration information, like being able to change your DNS routing information all by yourself, which I found is very important just in case your web hosting provider goes out of business or turns out to be flaky. So you may want, in some cases, to have this option available to you. And I'll provide a list of domain name registrars in my show notes. So to review everything we've just talked about, here are the steps to get your website online. First, contact the hosting provider and choose from one of the hosting plans they offer. They will provide you with the DNS routing information for your new site. 2, find an available domain name, then contact an authorized domain name registrar to register it. You will need to provide that DNS information that was given to you from the hosting provider in order for the domain name to be routed properly to your server. And that's it for this tutorial, and thanks for watching. If you're interested in links to some of the resources I talked about, just stop by rickcable.com where you'll find this tutorial and many others, or feel free to post your questions on my YouTube channel.